Hey, welcome back to Lake Martin Dock Company. I'm Dave McGirt with Daniel Jackson as always. This week we were talking about seawalls. So it's about midsummer, it's in July while we're taping this. And we were just trying to understand, a lot of folks are starting to understand that the water is going to come down in the fall and then need to make plans for a seawall. So from the top, what are the top three things I need to worry about when I start thinking about getting a seawall?
Yeah, three things would be, first off, budget. How much you want to spend to stabilize your shoreline. Two would be, what kind of look are you going for? There's different types of walls that, going to have different looks. And then three would be, structurally, what does your shoreline require? When you get into a taller, steeper lot where you need a 6, 7, 8 foot tall wall, you're not going to want to do a wood wall. It's not going to hold up, so you're going to be forced to go with concrete, which is going to be stronger. So I guess that would, round it up. So I guess three things are going to be, budget, what look you're going for, and structurally what's required.
Now let's back up and say, okay, we talked about budget, and we all like to start there. So from lowest cost to highest cost, kind of what's the normal options that folks use here on Lake Martin?
Yeah, so actual vertical walls, you'll have three different levels. You have a wood wall, concrete wall, and then a boulder stacked stone wall, ledge rock wall. Then before all that, you can do riprap as shoreline stabilization. So riprap is going to be needed for all of the other vertical walls, at least at the base of it. But you can do riprap as that would be the budget level, seawall, if you will. Just add riprap and just place that in to protect shoreline.
And I think Alabama Power, so talking about Lake Martin specifically, Alabama Power requires a minimum of riprap on your property already. Mm-hmm. So, they're trying to help you by, controlling the erosion at a minimum, even if you don't have a seawall, period. A lot of the old legacy lots on the lake, and there's still a handful, shouldn't be more than a handful, that's all that's protecting the shoreline. It's just old riprap. So it's not terribly expensive to get that redone and protect the investment and don't lose the shoreline, because my understanding is they're not being quite so forgiving. If you haven't maintained your shoreline, they're not going to give it back to you one day. Mm-hmm. So from a long-term investment, a seawall's it's a fundamental need for your property and protecting the investment long-term, because if you lose that shoreline, you're going to lose it forever. So that's probably one of the most important things I want folks to make sure they understand is if you're kicking the can down the road for a little while, at minimum get riprap, protect the lot that you own before you have a smaller lot one day due to just poor maintenance on the most inexpensive part, which is the riprap.
Yeah, the good thing with riprap is you can always reuse that. So a lot of times we can pull riprap walls back, build a wall in place, and then use that riprap to go back at the base of the wall. You can also, if budget is an issue and you want to get a wall in maybe the defined areas where you have a grass area next to the water, but you have some wooded areas behind you where you're not really worried about making it nice and pretty with a concrete or wood wall. Just put riprap back there and protect that area. So you can do that in combination of having some riprap along some of the areas that are more natural areas, and then defining those areas with a wood or concrete wall out front.
So you hit the next level up, right? So now we've got a riprap, we're protecting the shoreline at a minimum. Now we're trying to, quite frankly, make our yard not just have this steady slope into the water, but actually have a defined area to where we can have some landscaping and some nice grass for the kids to get out there and play, whatnot. And the wood seawalls are kind of that entry point. I've seen some geostone, stacked stone type things around the lake. Why are they not as popular as obviously the wood walls and the concrete walls?
Just because they're stacked. You're going to have, even if they're stacked tightly, you're not going to have a mortar wall. Even if you mortar them, it's not going to be great, but it's just going to allow water in. Anytime you get water and start penetrating that, and then it's just not going to hold up well. So doing a wood wall, you do allow water to come through that. That's a little bit different, but concrete is by far most popular, or doing a ledge rock wall. Those are kind of two options that are almost like forever type structures.
Right. So back to first real iteration of the wood wall, and not that we can nail it down, but what's an expectation of how long a wood wall is going to last with the current materials that are being manufactured today?
So I know we've been in business 34 years. I know we have some walls out there that are over 30 years old. with very minimal. We may have done some repairs with the top cap, which is just a 2x4 top cap, which it was damaged by just the exposure to the sun. It's just dried up wood. So structurally, the walls are fine. I would expect you could still get 20 years out of a wood seawall.
And then obviously the kind of forever solution is going to the reinforced concrete wall, with a kind of a stamped, kind of whatever design they want on that wall. What's the big driver for the concrete versus a wood?
A lot of people prefer the look of it. It's a little bit cleaner look. You get rid of the wood. Two, you just have options as far as doing a different pattern. So you can dress it up with doing some vertical looks. You can do a flat face wall, and then you could do a rock front on it, which is nice too. Most people are just going with it just for the longevity. They're wanting a lot of the properties we see here on Lake Martin, which you'd probably see on a lot of lakes, is they're in the family and they're going to hand it down to the kids, and so they're looking to invest in that property and put something that's going to last, not that something that the kids are going to have to worry with in 20 years.
Right. It's kind of one and done.
Yeah.
Now, the boulder walls are beautiful. Obviously, they're the most expensive. Are there any advantages, or is it really more architectural of why you would go to a boulder versus concrete?
Yeah, I think there is some advantages. The ledge rock boulder walls, I think they would outlast concrete, realistically. They're just, the natural material you're using in that, they seem to hold up well. It's a lot of aesthetics, too. People just like the look of it. But it does cost a little bit more. There's a lot more involved in getting that wall in place, and just overall, just the material is a little bit more expensive than concrete, although concrete's creeping on up there.
Yeah, and you hit it off the top, right? So budget's the first driver of where you are in your investment and that journey of owning a lake property, and then obviously the aesthetics of. If you're not doing a lot with your landscaping, like you said, I can do a wood wall over here, do riprap over here, and be very cost effective and protect your investment. If you're going to sink a lot of money into your landscaping, then you're going to want to kind of control what that edge is going out into the lake. So that's where you start headed towards the wood, and then obviously concrete forever, and then the boulder walls, the most expensive. Any other tips for folks that are thinking about updating, improving, or fixing their existing seawalls?
Look at the areas, if you don't have an existing wall and you have some erosion happening, I'd encourage you to meet with if you're on Lake Martin, an Alabama Power Shorelines representative, let him come out. In most cases, you can regain a lot of that washout area. Some of that may change in the future, but you may have the ability to increase your yard on the lakeside by 3, 4, maybe even 5 or 6 feet sometimes, depending on how they approach that and what they give you as far as approval to regain all that area.
Those are all the big things. So on Lake Martin, we have this lake is regulated, so they pull the water down in the fall and then come back up in the spring. One thing to be very mindful of, if you're scheduling your work specifically on Lake Martin, there's a number of companies that actually do seawall work here. Expect the schedules to be long, meaning that seawall season is very short, and it's very weather dependent. And if you have a rainy winter, the amount of time that you can actually work on the lake bed is reduced. The number of jobs obviously doesn't change, so sometimes jobs get pushed to the following year. So, these are years out. Like if you're looking to get a seawall this year, it might even still be tough to get into this year's seawall season for all the reputable seawall companies here on Lake Martin. And so, you plan ahead. So, and maybe you need that extra year to put away the money to pay for that boulder seawall that she wants versus the wood seawall you want, and however that goes. So think about that from a time perspective. But as Daniel mentioned, get with Alabama Power, get them out here, understand what you can do. But at the end of the day, the minimum thing is just make sure you've got enough riprap protecting your shoreline, especially with all the wave action, with all the boats that we have now. And it's the smartest thing you can do, the most economical thing you can do. And I think that hits all the big points. Down in the description, we'll have a link to some pictures, or some descriptions of the different types of seawalls. We'll also have a reminder link to the Alabama Power Shorelines site, where you can see what the permit information is on seawalls, and you can get in touch with those guys. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.